A shadow detaches from the coral wall. A reef predator, driven by the relentless mathematics of hunger, accelerates. Its target is unassuming, a slow-moving, somewhat clumsy fish navigating the labyrinth of the shallow water. The predator anticipates a routine kill. It opens its jaws, fully committing to the lunge, muscle memory dictating the exact force required to crush soft tissue. But in the fraction of a second before the teeth can close, the physics of the encounter violently rewrite themselves. The jaws snap shut, but not on flesh. They scrape against a sudden, bristling sphere that simply did not exist a heartbeat earlier. The bite collapses. The predator violently recoils, its mouth stinging and its momentum shattered. What was, a moment ago, a bite-sized meal has instantaneously transformed into an architectural impossibility. The ocean is full of animals that survive by outrunning their enemies or hiding in the dark. The pufferfish survives by altering the very dimensions of reality. It takes the predator's greatest asset, the size of its mouth, and turns it into a fatal miscalculation. When we imagine the inflated pufferfish, our terrestrial minds instinctively think of a balloon filling with air. But in the submerged reality of the reef, air is a liability. It is violently buoyant. A fish filled with air would instantly lose control, drag helplessly to the surface where it would be exposed to birds and the baking sun. The pufferfish does not breathe in the sky. It swallows the ocean. The transformation is a marvel of rapid aquatic hydraulics. When the animal's sensory circuits detect a sudden pressure wave or looming silhouette of strike, an ancient reflex pathway is triggered. It begins forcefully and rapidly pumping seawater directly into a highly specialized, incredibly elastic stomach. This stomach is folded upon itself, capable of distending to an astonishing degree, stretching to accommodate a volume of water several times greater than the fish's normal resting mass. But elasticity alone is not enough. If you were to inflate a normal fish, its ribs would shatter, and its internal organs would be crushed by the immense pressure. The pufferfish, over millions of years of evolutionary engineering, has discarded these structural limitations. Its rib cage is vastly reduced or entirely absent, allowing the body cavity to balloon outward without skeletal resistance. Its muscles coordinate this intake in a furious rhythm, while the gill slits lock down tight to prevent a single drop of water from escaping backward. Within moments, the streamlined shape of a swimming fish is gone, replaced by a rigid, pressurized globe. The predator is left staring at a creature that has effectively weaponized its own geometry. A jaw that could easily encompass the fish's original form is now utterly useless against the sheer diameter of the sphere. But size is only the first layer of his aquatic fortress. As the skin stretches tight over the expanding stomach, a secondary defense mechanism is deployed. Lying dormant beneath the surface of skin, previously flattened to reduce hydrodynamic drag, are hundreds of spines. Some are short and stout, others are elongated needles. As the skin expands, the tension forces these spines to pivot outward, locking into an upright position. The smooth, vulnerable prey is now a bristling minefield. If a desperate or overly aggressive predator attempts to force its jaws around the globe anyway, it is met with a mouthful of piercing resistance. The spines lodge at the roof of the mouth, tearing into the delicate membranes of the gills and throat. This is an animal that does not need to swim fast. It simply waits for the attacker to realize the horrific cost of its own ambition. The pufferfish forces the predator into a cost-benefit analysis where the cost is immediate physical trauma. But even this formidable physical barrier pales in comparison to the silent, invisible weapon lurking just beneath the surface. If the predator is large enough or foolish enough to ignore the spines and somehow crush the sphere, it will not find a meal. It will find a molecular executioner, hidden within the liver, the ovaries, the intestines, and even sweating through the skin of many pufferfish species. It is one of the most lethal biological compounds on the planet, tetrodotoxin. This is not a venom designed to cause the screaming, localized agony of a stingray barb. Tetrodotoxin is far more insidious, operating in total silence at the scale of individual cells. It is a potent neurotoxin that specifically targets and blocks the voltage-gated sodium channels in nerve cell membranes. These channels are the fundamental gateways of the nervous system, the mechanisms that allow electrical signals to travel from the brain to the muscles. When tetrodotoxin binds to these channels, it acts like an impenetrable plug. The electrical signals are instantly silenced. The commands in the brain to move, to swim, to breathe simply never arrive. The onset of this toxin is a chilling descent into paralysis. It begins with numbness, a tingling that spreads rapidly through the predator's body. Muscle coordination begins to unravel. The fish thrashes not in pain, but in a terrifying loss of control as its own body stops listening to its mind. Within minutes, the paralysis reaches the respiratory system. The gills cease their rhythmic pumping. The animal suffocates in the open ocean, its nervous system completely shut down, while its consciousness may remain trapped inside an immobilized shell until a lack of oxygen brings the end. The sheer potency of tetrodotoxin is staggering. It is exponentially more deadly than cyanide. The pufferfish does not need fangs or stingers to deliver it. It uses its own flesh as the ultimate deterrent. It makes the very act of consumption a fatal error. Yet, the most fascinating twist in the story of this chemical weapon is that the pufferfish does not actually create it. The fish is not a manufacturer of poison. It is a bioaccumulator, a living vault. The tetrodotoxin is produced by specific strains of symbiotic bacteria that exist in the marine environment and the sediment. As the pufferfish goes about its daily life, grazing on the reef, it ingests these bacteria. Instead of destroying the microbes, the fish sequesters their toxic byproducts, carefully storing the lethal compound within its own organs. The pufferfish has effectively outsourced its chemical defense to a microbial army. But why doesn't this stolen poison kill the host? If the toxin is designed to shut down the nervous systems of vertebrates, why does the pufferfish swim on unharmed? The answer lies in a microscopic, evolutionary arms race. Over countless generations, the sodium channels in the pufferfish's own nervous system have undergone a minute structural mutation. A tiny change in the shape of the proteins means that the tetrodotoxin molecule can no longer find a lock to fit its key. The fish is completely immune to the devastating weapon it carries. What is an apocalyptic neurotoxin to the rest of the ocean is merely an inert substance to the host. This incredible defense system is not without its costs. The ocean is an economy of energy, and absolute defense is expensive. When a pufferfish inflates, it trades all of its mobility for security. The rigid, spherical shape is an aerodynamic disaster in the water. The fish cannot swim efficiently. It can only paddle awkwardly with its small fins. If it is caught in a strong current while inflated, it is entirely at the mercy of the water, tumbled helplessly over the reef. Therefore, inflation is an emergency protocol, a temporary state of siege. Once the predator realizes the futility of the attack and swims away, the pufferfish must undergo the laborious process of expelling the massive volume of water, slowly shrinking back into its streamlined form to regain control of its movement. When it is not acting as a pressurized, toxic balloon, the pufferfish plays a vital, active role in the architecture of the reef. Beneath its comical, blunt face lies a highly specialized tool. Its teeth are fused together into a solid, incredibly powerful beak, driven by dense jaw muscles. This beak is not designed for catching slippery fish. It is designed for demolition. The pufferfish is a crusher. It roams the coral heads and the sandy rubble, seeking out hard-shelled invertebrates, crabs, sea urchins, heavily armored snails, and even chunks of live coral. Where other predators are defeated by calcium carbonate shells, the pufferfish simply bites through them. You can hear them feeding underwater, the loud, rhythmic cracking and grinding of their beaks shattering shells. Because these fused teeth grow continuously throughout their lives, they must constantly grind them down on hard surfaces, much like a rodent must gnaw on wood. By aggressively hunting the creatures that bore into coral or overgraze on the reef's foundations, the pufferfish acts as a necessary regulator. It keeps the populations of destructive invertebrates in check, helping to maintain the delicate balance between the organisms that build the reef and those that break it down. The animal that seems so focused on its own absolute defense is actually busy shaping the environment around it, turning solid shell into fine sand that eventually sifts down to form the very floor of the ocean. The defensive mastery of the pufferfish is so profound that it alters the behavior of entire ecosystems. A predator that survives an encounter with a toxic pufferfish, perhaps by biting only a small, less lethal piece, is branded with a powerful, lifelong lesson. It learns to associate that specific, clumsy swimming pattern, that blunt face, and that sudden spherical expansion with terrible sickness or agonizing paralysis. This learned avoidance ripples outward. Because predators actively avoid the pufferfish, they must redirect their hunting pressure onto other species, subtly shifting the balance of life and death across the entire reef. The pufferfish does not just offend itself. It projects an aura of untouchability that changes the flow of the food web. Even human culture has become entangled in the strange, lethal biology of this animal. In certain parts of the world, specifically in Japan, the flesh of the pufferfish is considered the absolute pinnacle of culinary indulgence, known as fugu. It is a dish defined by its proximity to death. The chefs who prepare it must undergo years of rigorous, intense training, learning to carve the fish with surgical precision. A single slip of the knife, a micromillimeter of error that punctures the liver or the ovaries, can contaminate the edible muscle with a lethal dose of tetrodotoxin. To eat fugu is to engage in a deliberate, controlled flirtation with the very chemical that shuts down the brain. It is the ultimate testament to the animal's power, that even a species capable of splitting the atom and leaving the planet considers eating this fish to be a supreme act of bravery. Yet, for all its armor and all its poison, the pufferfish is not a god of the reef. The evolutionary dialogue is never completely settled. In the vast, ancient stretches of the ocean, there are always workarounds. Certain large sharks, possessing incredibly thick dermal armor and highly specialized digestive tracts, seem capable of consuming pufferfish without succumbing to the toxin. Other, highly intelligent predators have learned to harass the fish until it inflates, and then carefully bite at the unprotected fins or the softer areas between the spines, avoiding the most lethal internal organs. The fortress is mighty, but it is not impenetrable. Because of this, the pufferfish does not rely on its ultimate weapon carelessly. As the sun sinks below the horizon and the water darkens, turning the reef from a sunlit mosaic into a shadowy landscape of nocturnal hunters, the pufferfish changes its strategy. It knows that to float openly in the dark is to invite a predator that might bite first and regret it later. To avoid this, the fish seeks out the narrowest, deepest crevices in the coral rock. It wedges its soft body into the tight spaces, and then it utilizes a brilliant variation of its defense. It swallows just enough water to partially inflate, wedging itself completely solid against the stone walls. In this state, it is virtually impossible to extract. No jaw can reach it. No current can dislodge it. It turns the very architecture of the earth into an extension of its own armor, sleeping securely while the predators prowl the open water. When you strip away the cartoonish image of a fish puffing up in surprise, you are left with one of the most sophisticated survival mechanisms on Earth. It is a creature that operates on multiple levels of deterrence. First, it presents a mechanical impossibility, a shape too large to swallow. If you overcome the shape, it presents a physical agony, a landscape of piercing spines. And if you somehow conquer the spines, it delivers the ultimate silence, a borrowed microbial poison that stops the heart. The pufferfish does not challenge the ocean with speed or stealth or aggressive fangs. It wins by redefining the rules of engagement. It turns the basic biological drive to consume into a lethal trap. It drifts over the coral, a slow-moving, wide-eyed observer of the reef, completely confident in the knowledge that while it may look like the easiest meal in the sea, it is, in reality, a beautifully engineered consequence. It is a living boundary line, a testament to the idea that sometimes the greatest power is simply making yourself impossible to destroy. The water does not thrash. There is no cloud of silt, no violent disruption of the current, no desperate, twisting struggle echoing through the coral corridors. A reef fish, vibrating with a high-strung, nervous energy typical of its kind, simply freezes. One moment, it is a darting silver flash, its muscles firing in a perfect sequence of aerobic precision, navigating the intricate limestone labyrinth. The next moment, it becomes a rigid, sinking statue. The transition from explosive life to absolute stillness is almost too fast for the eye to track. The predator has already retreated, dissolving back into the shifting blue, leaving nothing but a pair of microscopic punctures hidden beneath the scales of his victim. This is the phantom strike of the sea snake. It is a masterclass in biological economy, a kill executed with such devastating, quiet precision that it bypasses the chaos of a traditional hunt entirely. To understand the terrifying efficiency of this animal, we must first look at its ancestry. The sea snake carries the unmistakable, haunting silhouette of a terrestrial nightmare into an alien world. It is a creature born of the earth, an air-breathing reptile that has descended into an environment engineered to drown it. It is an evolutionary trespasser. Yet it has not just survived this trespass. It has conquered through a series of radical anatomical compromises that rewrite the rules of serpentine survival. On land, a venomous snake relies on scent trails. It can afford to bite a rat, let it run, and casually track the dying animal through the underbrush using its flickering tongue to taste the chemical signature of its own venom. In the ocean, that luxury is completely erased. The sea is a three-dimensional maze of endless escape routes. If a bitten fish is allowed even 3 seconds of mobility, it will vanish into a deep, inaccessible crevice in the coral. Furthermore, the sea snake is fighting a relentless, invisible clock, its own oxygen supply. Every second spent chasing a fleeing meal is a second of precious, atmospheric air burned away in the muscles. The sea snake cannot afford the metabolic luxury of a chase. Evolution solved this fatal problem not by making the snake faster, but by making its chemistry apocalyptic. The venom of the sea snake is a hyper-refined, fiercely specialized neurotoxic cocktail. It is not designed to simply cause pain or to slowly digest tissue like the venom of some vipers. It is designed to act as an instantaneous off-switch for the vertebrate nervous system. The moment the microscopic fangs pierce the skin, specialized myotoxins and neurotoxins flood the bloodstream, racing toward the neuromuscular junctions, the critical bridges where nerves command muscles to contract. The toxins aggressively bind to the receptors on these bridges, completely jamming the transmission signals. The brain screams for the tail to swim, but the message is blocked. Paralysis is not gradual. It is instantaneous and absolute. By shutting down the prey immediately, the sea snake eliminates the need for a chase, conserving its precious oxygen and neutralizing the reef's endless hiding places. The chemistry of the venom compensates entirely for the limitations of the lung, but the adaptation goes far beyond the venom glands. The sea snake has fundamentally re-engineered its own morphology to negotiate with the crushing physics of water. The cylindrical, tube-like body of a land snake is highly inefficient for swimming. To generate forward thrust in a dense liquid, you need surface area. Over millions of years, the tail of the sea snake has been flattened laterally, compressed into a highly effective muscular paddle. When it moves, it does not wriggle, it glides. It sends smooth, hypnotic lateral undulations down the length of its body, slicing through the water with almost zero drag, creating no turbulent wake to alert potential prey. Its motion is a deceptive, liquid calm that perfectly masks its lethal intent. It utilizes the camouflage of behavior, moving so smoothly, so seamlessly, that it barely registers as a living threat until it's already too late. Even the architecture of its breath has been weaponized. Because it must surface to breathe, the sea snake's life is governed by a pendulum swing between the sky and the abyss. To maximize its time below, its internal anatomy has undergone a radical shift. The left lung is greatly reduced or entirely absent, while the right lung has become a massive, elongated cylinder stretching almost the entire length of its body. This enormous organ does more than just store oxygen. It acts as a biological submarine ballast tank. By meticulously controlling the volume of air within this lung, the sea snake can adjust its internal density. It can achieve perfect neutral buoyancy, allowing it to hover motionless in the middle of the water column without twitching a single muscle. It uses its very breath to hold itself perfectly still, hanging like a suspended rope in the current, observing the reef without spending a single calorie of effort. The very lung that forces it to flee to the surface becomes the instrument that allows it to dominate the depths. Yet, holding its breath is only one of the physiological wars the sea snake wages against the ocean. The second, entirely invisible war is the battle against salt. The ocean is a hypertonic environment. It relentlessly tries to suck the water out of living cells while forcing deadly amounts of sodium inside. For a reptile, swallowing seawater should be a rapid death sentence, leading to profound dehydration and organ failure. The sea snake counters this with a specialized sublingual gland tucked beneath its tongue. This microscopic desalination plant actively filters the blood, extracting the excess sodium and chloride and weeping it out into the ocean. Because of this hidden organ, the sea snake can drink the sea. It can remain immersed in an environment that should desiccate it, maintaining a perfect, isolated internal ocean of its own. As it maneuvers through the jagged, abrasive architecture of the coral reef, another subtle modification reveals itself. The overlapping, keeled scales that give land snakes their grip and texture have been smoothed down. The sea snake is wrapped in an armor of tightly fitted, flattened scales that vastly reduce hydrodynamic friction. It slips through narrow crevices and tight coral branches like oiled silk. It exploits these microhabitats, probing deep into dark burrows where eels and small fish hide, reaching to places where bulky, large-headed predators like groupers and sharks cannot follow. In doing so, it exerts a quiet, invisible pressure on the entire community of the reef. It regulates the populations of the hidden, the nocturnal, and the secretive, acting as an apex predator of the shadows. Perhaps the most profound evolutionary leap, however, is how the sea snake has severed its final, lingering tether to the land. Sea turtles and marine iguanas are prisoners of the beach. They must drag themselves from the safety of the water, heavy and vulnerable, to bury their eggs in the sand. Many sea snakes have abandoned this dangerous pilgrimage entirely. They have become viviparous. They incubate their embryos internally, nourishing them within their own bodies, and give birth to fully formed, live young directly into the open ocean. These neonates do not experience a childhood. They are born into the vast, unforgiving blue, instantly independent, equipped with fully functional venom apparatus and the ancestral instinct to kill. The ocean is their cradle, and their hunting ground from their very first breath. By abandoning the shore, the sea snake has achieved total marine integration. The land is no longer a sanctuary. It is a forgotten relic of their evolutionary past. But this highly specialized existence is not without profound vulnerabilities. The sea snake is a paradox of absolute lethality and intense fragility. Its reliance on atmospheric air is its Achilles heel. It must eventually rise. In those moments of ascent and descent, traveling through the open water column, it is exposed. Large pelagic sharks, heavily armored and largely resistant to neurotoxins, will readily consume them. Sea eagles snatch them from the surface as they draw breath. And then there's a threat that biology cannot adapt to: the human element. The sea snake's reliance on oxygen makes it tragically susceptible to the indiscriminate sweep of industrial fishing. When caught in a trawling net or entangled in a gill net, the animal cannot simply wait for release. Trapped beneath the surface, panic sets in. The slow, calculated metabolism accelerates. The enormous lung burns through its reserves. The predator that has mastered the chemistry of instant death, that has conquered the physics of the crushing deep, ultimately drowns, suffocating in the very water it evolved to rule. The ocean reduces its most efficient killer to collateral damage. When the sun begins to set, the reef undergoes a dramatic transition. The vertical migration of plankton draws small fish out from their daytime hiding spaces. The sea snake aligns its rhythm with this twilight emergence. As the light fails, its vision, adapted for the dim, blue-shifted spectrum of the water, locks onto movement. It relies on a hypersensitive integration of mechanoreception, feeling the minute vibrations of a struggling fish's tail in the water column, and chemoreception, tasting the chemical gradients left behind by panicked prey. It does not ambush from a fixed location like a stonefish, nor does it hurt its prey like a lionfish. It simply patrols, a fluid ribbon of muscle exploring the boundary between the light and the dark. When the strike occurs, it is a testament to calculated restraint. There is no massive expenditure of energy, no violent thrashing that might attract larger predators. It glides, it bites, it waits for the chemistry to do the work. The sea snake is not a monster. It is a masterpiece of biological negotiation. It proves that dominance in the ocean does not require massive jaws, relentless speed, or the ability to breathe underwater. Dominance can be achieved by taking a terrestrial body, reshaping it for fluid dynamics, and turning the chemistry of your own saliva into an inescapable consequence. It is a creature suspended between two worlds, tied to the sky by the necessity of its breath, yet inextricably bound to the deep by the perfection of its design. It haunts the reef not as a terror, but as a silent, undulating reminder that the most lethal forces in nature are often the quietest, moving like liquid shadows to the sea, armed with the power to turn a living, breathing animal into stone. The seafloor appears entirely barren. The sunlight filtering down to the shallows creates a shifting, hypnotic mosaic of light on the rippled sand, a seemingly empty desert of crushed shells and sediment. A shadow passes over this quiet expanse, a heavy predator, or perhaps a careless human foot, pressing down into the murky substrate. In a fraction of a millisecond, the illusion of emptiness violently shatters. The sand erupts. A whip of muscle and cartilage snaps upward from the earth with ballistic, surgical precision. It does not slash blindly. It drives a serrated, venom-laced dagger deep into the intruding flesh. The pain does not build. It is an instantaneous, blinding detonation of agony that radiates upward, crippling the nervous system. And the architect of this trauma never even broke its cover. It did not pursue. It did not display its fangs or roar a warning. It simply waited in absolute silence, and when its physical boundary was breached, the ocean floor itself struck back. The stingray is the undisputed phantom of the coastal shallows. To look at its anatomy is to witness millions of years of evolutionary pressure literally flattening a vertebrate into a two-dimensional specter. Its pectoral fins have fused seamlessly with its head and body, creating a broad, continuous disc that behaves less like a fish and more like a pair of wings engineered for liquid airspace. When a stingray moves, it does not swim in the traditional sense. It flies. It undulates those massive, muscular wings in a mesmerizing, fluid rhythm, gliding mere millimeters above the substrate without disturbing a single grain of sand. And when it decides to vanish, the process is practically magical. With a few subtle, shivering ripples of its margins, the ray dusts a thin, perfectly even layer of sediment over its back. In the blink of an eye, the animal ceases to exist as a biological entity and becomes geology. It erases its silhouette entirely. The only proof of life remaining are the spiracles, twin breathing vents situated on the dorsal surface of its head, pulsing quietly, drawing clean water down into the gills while the mouth remains safely buried in the abrasive grit below. This is not merely hiding. It is the absolute mastery of morphological surrender. Hidden within the trailing, whip-like tail is the source of its fearsome reputation. The stingray's barb is a masterpiece of horrific engineering. It is a rigid, denton-like spine carved with brutal, backward-facing serrations, sheathed in a thin, delicate layer of integument that houses highly concentrated venom glands. When the tail whips upward and the spine breaches an attacker's flesh, this sheath naturally tears away, allowing the venom to flood directly into the compressing tissue. The serrations act as microscopic anchors, ensuring that any attempt to pull away only drives the barb deeper, inflicting maximum structural damage to the muscle. The venom itself is an incredibly complex cocktail of proteins and peptides designed to do one specific thing: induce absolute disproportionate nociception. It forces the pain receptors of the victim to fire at their maximum capacity, creating a burning, localized hell accompanied by rapid tissue necrosis and intense, systemic inflammation. It is a biochemical emergency response system built for maximum physical trauma. Yet, the most profound truth about the stingray is the staggering juxtaposition between its lethal capability and its actual nature. The stingray is not a hunter of flesh. It is not an aggressive chemical warrior terrorizing the reef, nor does it use its legendary tail to secure its meals. The stingray is a quiet, meticulous excavator. The venom that can drop a grown apex predator to its knees plays absolutely no role in how this animal survives daily. Its true predatory prowess lies in an entirely invisible spectrum. The stingray hunts by listening to the electric whispers of the buried world. Hidden beneath its snout, near its constantly working mouth, is a specialized network of gel-filled pores known as the ampullae of Lorenzini. These are highly tuned electroreceptors. Every living creature, no matter how small, generates a faint bioelectric field when its muscles twitch or its nervous system fires. A crab buried a foot deep in the mud, holding perfectly still in total darkness, cannot hide the voltage of its own existence. The stingray glides over the sand like a living metal detector, mapping the microscopic electrical gradients of the seabed. When it registers a pulse, the phantom stops. It drops its massive disc over the signal, pinning the hidden prey and creating an inescapable vacuum. It uses its incredibly powerful jaws, lined with flat, crushing plates rather than sharp teeth, to shatter the thickest shells, grinding mollusks and crustaceans into dust. It extracts the soft nutrients and spits out the shattered calcium fragments. The animal defined in the human mind by its toxic tail actually sustains itself through bioelectric surveillance and brute mechanical force. This separation of feeding and defense highlights a brilliant evolutionary economy. Venom is incredibly expensive for a biological system to produce, store, and maintain. It drains calories and taxes the metabolic system. If the stingray used its venom to hunt crabs and worms, it would constantly deplete its reserves for very little caloric payoff. By strictly reserving the barb for moments of ultimate existential threat, the ray preserves its energy. The tail is the ultimate contingency plan. It is kept sheathed, dragging harmlessly in the sand, until flight is completely compromised. This is the ultimate expression of restraint. The stingray does not want to fight. It wants to fade away. But if the camouflage fails, and if the perimeter is trampled, the response is uncompromising. Of course, in the unforgiving arena of the ocean, no defense is absolute. The stingray's localized supremacy is constantly challenged by specialized predators. Enormous hammerhead sharks use their wide, sensor-packed heads to pin stingrays to the floor, often enduring or ignoring the venomous strikes entirely to secure a meal. Orcas, demonstrating terrifying, calculated intelligence, have learned to grab the rays by the edges of their wings and flip them upside down. This induces a state of tonic immobility, a natural paralysis that renders the deadly tail completely useless. The ocean is an endless chess match, and the stingray's spine is just one move in a million-year game of survival. Furthermore, the spine itself is not a permanent fixture. Like the teeth of a shark, it is shed and regrown in cycles. There are periods of profound vulnerability where the old barb has fallen away and the new one is not yet fully hardened. During these intervals, the ray is stripped of its ultimate weapon and must rely entirely on its invisibility and its ability to detect the electric approach of danger before it arrives. When it comes to reproducing, the stingray refuses to trust the chaotic ocean with helpless eggs. Many species are viviparous, retaining their embryos deep inside their bodies. The mother nourishes them internally with specialized, protein-rich uterine milk until they are fully developed. When she finally gives birth, she releases miniature, perfect replicas of herself into the shallow, predator-dense nurseries of the coastal estuaries. These neonates do not have the luxury of time to learn how to defend themselves. They are born fully armed, their tiny tails already equipped with functional, venomous barbs. The legacy of chemical defense is passed down instantly, a mandatory inheritance for surviving the margins of the sea. Beyond its role as a survivor, the stingray acts as an unwitting architect of its ecosystem. As it aggressively excavates the sand in search of food, it turns over the substrate, aerating the compacted sediment. These foraging pits become microaces, altering the topography of the seafloor and creating shelter depressions for smaller organisms to colonize. The ray brings life to the barren flats, cycling nutrients and shaping the physical environment through its endless search for electricity. Yet, it is this very reliance on the shallow, sandy margins of the world that brings it into frequent, tragic conflict with humanity. As coastlines are developed, as sediment is altered, and as shallow waters become crowded, the stingray's ancient strategy of concealment becomes a liability. A foot steps down in the murky surf. The ancient reflex fires automatically, and defensive action honed over millennia is instantly branded as an unprovoked attack. The ray does not sting out of malice. It stings out of an evolutionary mandate to survive the crushing weight of an unpredictable world. To watch a stingray in motion is to witness a masterclass in quiet endurance. It lifts gently from the seafloor, leaving a pale, ghostly imprint in the sand where its body lay concealed seconds before. It resumes its patrol, wings rippling in a slow, hypnotic cadence, perfectly synchronized with the rhythm of the tides. The lethal tail trails behind it, a silent, unsheathed warning written in cartilage and venom. It is a creature that holds the power to inflict unimaginable pain, yet chooses to spend its life whispering to the bioelectric currents of the earth. The stingray teaches us that true dominance in the wild is rarely loud. It thrives on a beautiful, terrifying premise that the most dangerous weapon in the sea is the one that is perfectly integrated into a body built for calm, waiting patiently beneath the sand until the world makes the fatal mistake of stepping too close. A barefoot or a webbed fin, or a careless claw descends through the warm, sunlit shallows of the tropical reef. It seeks purchase on what appears to be an unremarkable patch of dead coral, a crusty, algae-covered lump of limestone worn down by the tides. The weight settles. In that microscopic fraction of a second, the concept of a passive landscape violently shatters. The pain does not build from an ache to a throb. It detonates. It is an immediate, catastrophic explosion of agony that radiates upward from the point of contact, racing to the nervous system with terrifying speed. The invader instantly recoils, thrashing the water, a mind overwhelmed by a biochemical fire. Yet, as the victim violently retreats, the piece of the reef that inflicted this trauma remains perfectly, impossibly still. It does not flee. It does not pursue. It does not possess a capacity to roar or flash warning colors. Because what triggered this devastating retaliation was not a hunt, nor was it a territorial charge. It was a compression event, measured in millimeters. Beneath that exact patch of rubble, a living, breathing organism successfully converted gravity into venom, transforming the downward pressure of an enemy into an inescapable chemical judgment. Welcome to the absolute zero of the marine food web. The stonefish does not chase its prey, and it does not run from its predators. It simply waits for the world to come to it, and punishes anything that fails to recognize a boundary between life and geology. To survive in the coral reef, an ecosystem defined by its chaotic, three-dimensional architecture and its relentless, predatory gaze, most animals choose one of two paths. They either become fast enough to escape or armored enough to withstand an attack. The stonefish rejects both premises. It opts for morphological surrender. It survives by fundamentally erasing its own biological identity, collapsing the distinction between organism and environment until there is absolutely no visible difference between the animal and the ocean floor. When you look at a stonefish, you are not looking at the recognizable architecture of a fish. It has abandoned the sleek, hydrodynamic torpedo shape of its cousins. Its body is squat, irregular, and grotesquely asymmetrical. The skin is not covered in smooth, reflective scales, but in lumpy, wart-like protrusions, fleshy tassels, and filamentous appendages that break up any remaining recognizable silhouette. It is textured to perfectly mimic encrusting sponges, dead coral heads, and limestone fragments. But this illusion goes deeper than mere texture. Deep within its dermis, specialized cells called chromatophores constantly read the ambient light and surrounding substrate, subtly shifting the fish's pigmentation to perfectly match the exact shade of the algae and rock beneath it, a predator swimming overhead, scanning the bottom for the bilateral symmetry of a prey item, sees nothing but the chaotic noise of the reef. A smaller fish, drifting lazily in search of meal, interprets the shape below as just another piece of terrain. The camouflage is so total, so absolute, that the stonefish routinely allows crabs to crawl over its face and small fish to graze on the algae growing on its back without twitching a single muscle. It thrives not despite the visual chaos of the reef, but entirely because of it. It becomes a glitch in the predator's visual algorithm. Yet, as absolute as this camouflage is, it is only the first layer of a terrifying defensive matrix. Inevitably, in the crowded, high-traffic corridors of the coastal shallows, physical contact will occur. A predator will misjudge a bite, or a larger animal will blindly step down. When the illusion of invisibility fails, the stonefish transitions instantly from deception to devastation. Rising along its dorsal ridge are 13 incredibly stout, rigid spines. These are not flexible fins. They are biological hypodermic needles, each one deeply anchored into the fish's skeletal structure. Embedded at the base of every single spine is a pair of massive venom glands. These spines are completely sheathed in a layer of thick skin. The delivery mechanism is entirely passive, requiring absolutely no muscular contraction from the fish itself. It is a trap powered exclusively by the victim's own momentum. When downward force is applied, when the jaw of a shark closes or the foot of an intruder presses down, the thick skin sheathing the spine pushes back, compressing the venom glands at the base. The immense pressure forces the venom up through deep grooves carved into the sides of the spine, injecting it directly into the descending tissue. The harder the attacker presses, the deeper the spine penetrates, and the more venom is violently expressed into the wound. It is a system engineered for pure consequence. The payload delivered through these grooved needles is a nightmarish cocktail of protein-based toxins designed to wreck cellular infrastructure. Upon envenomation, the toxins immediately begin attacking cell membranes, causing massive, localized tissue necrosis. But the true horror unfolds as the venom targets the nervous and cardiovascular systems. Pain fibers are forced to fire relentlessly, creating a sensation often described by human survivors as having a limb submerged in boiling acid. As the venom moves systematically, it disrupts neuromuscular transmission, leading to severe muscle weakness and paralysis. Cardiovascular effects quickly follow. The toxins interfere directly with the cardiac muscle's ability to contract, causing precipitous drops in blood pressure, severe arrhythmias, and, in extreme cases, catastrophic heart failure. The stonefish does not use this weapon to kill its dinner. It uses it to enforce respect. A predator that mistakenly bites down on this living rock is instantly hit with a shockwave of pain and physiological collapse, so severe that its nervous system is overwhelmed before it can even complete the mechanical act of chewing. The attacker drops the fish and recoils in agony, its brain permanently scarred with a memory of that specific, agonizing piece of seafloor. The reef becomes a biochemical minefield, and the stonefish successfully defends its territory without ever having to move an inch. But the most fascinating twist in the biology of the stonefish is that beneath this terrifying, venomous armament lies an ambushed predator of breathtaking subtlety. The stonefish is not merely a defensive relic. It is an active, lethal hunter that has weaponized its own immobility. Because it expends almost zero energy swimming, the stonefish boasts an incredibly low metabolic rate. It can sit in the exact same location for days, even weeks, barely breathing, waiting for the ocean's currents to deliver a meal directly to its doorstep. When a small, unwary fish or a drifting crustacean finally wanders within striking distance, completely blind to the danger hidden in plain sight, the stonefish abandons its stillness. It does not lunge forward. Instead, it employs a mechanism of rapid suction feeding that defies its sluggish appearance. In a fraction of a millisecond, the massive, upward-facing jaws drop open and protrude forward. The buccal cavity, the inside of the mouth, expands exponentially. This instantaneous expansion creates a massive, localized pressure differential, a violent underwater vacuum. The prey is not bitten. It is literally inhaled. The surrounding water and the victim suspended within it are sucked into the cavernous mouth before the prey's nervous system can even register the shift in the current. The jaws snap shut, and the stonefish returns to being a rock. This feeding strategy relies entirely on hydrodynamic manipulation rather than speed across a distance. By remaining perfectly motionless and allowing its prey to voluntarily enter its kill zone, the stonefish operates with a ruthless energy efficiency. In the warm, oxygen-depleted waters of the tropical shallows, sustained aerobic swimming demands a massive caloric output. The stonefish bypasses this tax entirely. Its musculature is practically non-existent when it comes to sustained cruising, but it is hyper-optimized for explosive, micro-bursts of predatory violence. However, this extreme specialization comes with profound evolutionary compromise. The body plan that makes the stonefish an invisible, unswallowable master of the benthic ambush makes it incredibly vulnerable in the open water. The very spines that defend it against trampling completely ruin its hydrodynamic flexibility. The bulky, asymmetrical body cannot generate the thrust needed to outswim a determined, agile predator. If a stonefish is somehow flushed from its cover and forced into the open column, it is clumsy, slow, and exposed. It relies on stillness as both its shield and its sword. Without the backdrop of the reef to disappear into, the illusion is broken. This vulnerability exposes the stonefish to highly specialized predators that have figured out how to crack the code. Large sea turtles, certain rays, and massive tiger sharks possess incredibly thick, armored dermal layers in their mouths and digestive tracts. They can scoop a stonefish off the bottom and crush it, their tough tissues mitigating the worst of the envenomation risk. The ultimate defense is never truly absolute in the ocean. Furthermore, the stonefish faces an existential threat that its camouflage cannot hide from: the rapid, global degradation of its habitat. The stonefish's survival is entirely dependent on the structural complexity of the coral reef. It needs the shadows, the textures, the mosaic of colors, and the chaotic geometry of living and dead coral to successfully erase its silhouette. When reefs suffer from thermal stress and undergo mass bleaching events, the vibrant, textured landscape is reduced to flat, blindingly white, uniform fields of dead limestone rubble. In this devastated environment, the master of disguise suddenly finds itself starkly exposed. The camouflage loses its fidelity. The background algorithm it relies on to hide has been deleted, leaving the stonefish as a highly visible target in a ruined world. Yet, as long as the complex reef survives, the stonefish remains one of its most critical, unseen architects. Even its reproduction is tied to the grand, sweeping rhythms of the ocean. During synchronized spawning events, the stonefish abandons its solitary vigil to release eggs and sperm into the water column. These gametes are caught by the currents, mixing and dispersing across vast stretches of the ocean. The resulting larvae drift in planktonic suspension for weeks. Tiny, transparent ghosts ride in the tides before finally settling down onto a new patch of suitable reef, where they undergo a radical metamorphosis. They lose their pelagic grace, their bodies thickening and warping as they align themselves with a life bound to the bottom. This dispersal ensures that the stonefish is not just an isolated rock, but a vital participant in a dynamic, interconnected coastal network. The presence of the stonefish on a reef exerts a powerful, invisible influence on behavior of every other animal in the ecosystem. Envenomation events, though rare, are profoundly educational. A single, agonizing encounter with a stonefish alters the spatial memory of a surviving predator forever. That animal will change how it navigates the seafloor, moving with greater caution, avoiding certain textures, and altering its territorial boundaries. The stonefish does not need to actively patrol its territory to control it. It modifies the behavioral landscape of the reef through the sheer, terrifying potential of its presence. It adds invisible constraints to the physical terrain, teaching the ecosystem that the boundary between safe passage and unimaginable pain is incredibly thin. As the day ends and the reef transitions into its nocturnal shift, the stonefish remains exactly where it was. Plankton pulses upward with the tidal cycle. Schools of fish reorganize their ranks, and nocturnal crustaceans emerge from their deep crevices to scour the rocks. The entire ocean seems to be in motion, a ceaseless exchange of energy and risk. But the stonefish does not participate in the rush. It remains anchored, a patient, lethal node in a system of endless flows. Its skin is utterly indistinguishable from the calcified debris. Its spines are aligned, dormant but armed, waiting for a precise moment when the physics of the ocean press down upon them. The ultimate strategy of the stonefish is not one of overt domination, but of governance through consequence. It does not actively hunt the strong, nor does it flee the powerful. It simply waits, turning every misjudgment into injury and every careless motion into pain. It transforms the reef floor into a domain where perception is the absolute key to survival. Those who read the subtle textures of the seabed correctly pass unharmed. Those who fail are violently reminded that the ocean is a place of endless deception, where the most formidable weapons are often the ones disguised as nothing at all, waiting in utter silence until the moment the world steps down and discovers that the ground itself can strike back. The coral reef is a bustling, cacophonous metropolis, a three-dimensional city forged over millennia by billions of microscopic architects. Every square inch of the limestone foundation pulses with life. Tiny coral polyps extend their delicate, translucent tentacles into the passing current, frantically snatching at drifting plankton in a desperate, endless harvest. It is a landscape defined by frantic energy, rapid motion, and vibrant, explosive color. But then, a shadow falls over the branching spires. It is a slow, creeping eclipse that does not swim, does not dart, and does not strike. It simply descends. A massive, multi-armed silhouette settles heavily over the living coral. Hundreds of tiny, hydraulically powered tube feet lock onto the jagged calcium skeleton with an unbreakable grip. And then, the creature does something that defies the very concept of a traditional predator. It does not open a set of jaws. It does not slash with claws. Instead, The center of its underside tears open, and the starfish everts its own stomach. A pale, translucent membrane spills out from the central disc, expanding outward like a grotesque shroud, completely enveloping the living coral polyps beneath it. The crown-of-thorns starfish does not eat its prey, it dissolves it. Once the stomach membrane is pressed tightly against the reef, a flood of highly caustic digestive enzymes is secreted directly onto the coral. The digestion process occurs entirely outside of the starfish's body. The polyps, trapped beneath the suffocating veil, are systematically liquefied, their cellular structures broken down into a nutrient-rich biological soup. The starfish simply absorbs the resulting fluid back through the walls of its exposed stomach. For hours, the predator sits in perfect, terrifying silence, drinking the life out of the reef. When it finally retracts its stomach and slowly glides away on its hundreds of tube feet, it leaves behind an absolute wasteland. Where there was once a vibrant, living ecosystem, there's only a blindingly white, completely sterile calcium skeleton, a ghostly scar marking the passage of a slow-motion apocalypse. This is a creature that seems to belong to an alien taxonomy. The crown-of-thorns starfish is a sprawling, radial nightmare that can grow to the size of a man's torso, possessing up to 21 heavily armored arms. But it is the armor itself that gives the animal its name and its terrifying reputation. The entire upper surface of starfish is bristling with thousands of rigid, needle-sharp spines that can measure over 2 inches long. These spines are not merely intimidating to look at. They are a formidable, highly evolved chemical defense system. If a curious predator, perhaps a reef shark or a large, opportunistic fish, attempt to bite or even aggressively bump the starfish, the consequences are immediate and severe. The spines are incredibly sharp, easily piercing the tough dermal layers of a fish's mouth or the thick neoprene of a diver's wetsuit. But they are also remarkably brittle. Upon impact, the tips of the spine snap off entirely, lodging themselves deeply within the attacker's flesh. As they break, they release a potent, toxic mixture of saponins directly into the wound. The resulting pain is completely disproportionate to the size of the puncture. It is a burning, searing agony that radiates through the tissue, accompanied by severe swelling, intense localized bleeding, and prolonged inflammatory response that can last for weeks. The starfish has effectively transformed its entire, massive body into a highly toxic, unapproachable perimeter. It does not need to swim away from danger, because it guarantees that any animal foolish enough to touch it will remember the encounter with vivid, agonizing clarity. It wears its vengeance on its skin, but the true ecological power of the crown-of-thorns starfish is not found in its venomous armor, nor in its gruesome method of feeding. Its true power and the profound narrative reversal of its existence lies in its capacity for scale. When you observe a single crown of thorns moving across the reef, it appears to be a solitary, somewhat sluggish grazer. It is a slow-moving hazard, certainly, but seemingly incapable of inflicting widespread destruction. However, the true nature of this animal is only revealed when its population dynamics undergo a catastrophic shift. Under the right conditions, these starfish do not merely exist on a reef. They plague it. In a balanced, healthy marine ecosystem, the crown-of-thorns starfish is a rare sight. It plays a subtle but necessary role in the architecture of the reef. By selectively grazing on the fastest-growing species of branching corals, a small number of starfish can actually promote biodiversity. They act like a natural forest fire, clearing out the dominant species and opening up vital real estate on the crowded reef, allowing slower-growing, massive coral species to establish a foothold. In moderation, the starfish is a regulator, a necessary agent of destruction that prevents a single species of coral from monopolizing the environment. But when that balance is broken, the starfish transforms from a localized grazer into a weapon of mass ecological erasure. Population outbreaks of the crown-of-thorns are one of the most devastating biological events a coral reef can experience. Thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of these massive, spiky discs converge on a single reef system. They move like a slow, unstoppable army of digestion. They strip entire kilometers of coral down to the bone in a matter of months. When an outbreak occurs, the impact is not limited to coral itself. It triggers a catastrophic trophic cascade that tears the entire ecosystem apart. Coral is not just an animal. It is a fundamental infrastructure of the ocean. It is the housing, the nursery, and the hunting ground for thousands of other species. When the crown of thorns army sweeps through and digests the living tissue, the structural integrity of the reef begins to collapse. The brilliant colors fade to a necrotic white. Without the living polyps to defend the limestone skeletons, aggressive macroalgae quickly moves in, smothering the dead coral in a thick, choking green blanket. The small reef fish that rely on the branching corals for shelter are suddenly left entirely exposed to predators, and their populations plummet. The larger predators, finding no prey, are forced to abandon the reef entirely. Within an astonishingly short window of time, a vibrant, three-dimensional metropolis is reduced to a flattened, algae-covered graveyard. A single species of slow-moving invertebrate possesses a biological capacity to completely dismantle one of the most complex ecosystems on the planet. To understand how a solitary grazer becomes an apocalyptic swarm, we must look to the microscopic world, and, inevitably, to the shadow of human influence. The reproductive capacity of the crown of thorns starfish is almost beyond comprehension. They do not mate, they broadcast. During synchronized spawning events, a single large female can release up to 65 million eggs into the water column in a single season. These eggs mix with clouds of sperm, creating millions of microscopic, transparent larvae that drift helplessly in the ocean currents. In a purely natural system, the vast, overwhelming majority of these larvae would simply starve to death in the nutrient-poor waters of the open ocean or be consumed by filter feeders. Only a microscopic fraction would survive to settle on a reef and grow into adults. This massive mortality rate is the natural bottleneck that keeps the starfish population in check. However, human activity has inadvertently shattered this bottleneck. As massive agricultural operations on land utilize thousands of tons of synthetic fertilizers, the nutrient-rich runoff washes down the rivers and empties directly into the coastal oceans. This sudden influx of nitrogen and phosphorus acts as a massive shot of adrenaline to the marine environment, triggering explosive, unnatural blooms of phytoplankton. For the microscopic, drifting larvae of the crown of thorns starfish, this phytoplankton bloom is an infinite feast. Suddenly, the deep blue desert of the ocean is transformed into an all-you-can-eat buffet. The starvation bottleneck is completely bypassed. Millions upon millions of larvae survive their planktonic stage, raining down onto the coral reefs in unprecedented numbers. They settle into the dark crevices, hiding and growing until they emerge a year later as an unstoppable, armor-clad legion. The devastating outbreaks that consume entire reef systems are often not a natural phenomenon, but a direct, biological echo of human agriculture occurring hundreds of miles inland. The starfish is merely the venomous instrument. The trigger is pulled by the terrestrial world. Yet, even heavily armored and numerically superior, the crown of thorns starfish is not entirely without fear. The evolutionary arms race has produced predators capable of bypassing the toxic perimeter. The most formidable of these is a giant triton, a massive, predatory sea snail encased in a beautiful, spiraling shell that can grow to over half a meter in length. The encounter between a giant triton and a crown of thorns is a bizarre, slow-motion clash of titans. The triton is entirely immune to the starfish's toxic saponins. It glides over the reef, tracking the chemical scent of its prey. When it locates a starfish, the triton does not hesitate. It rears up and pins a spiky disc to the rock with its massive, muscular foot. The starfish desperately tries to deploy its spines, but they are useless against the snail's thick, callous flesh. The triton then deploys its own chemical weapon. It extends a long, flexible proboscis, probing between the venomous spines, and inject a highly specialized, paralyzing saliva directly into the starfish's central nervous system. The massive, heavily armed predator is instantly rendered flaccid and helpless. The triton then begins to saw through the tough outer skin with its radula, a tongue covered in microscopic, razor-sharp teeth, eating the starfish alive from the inside out. However, the giant triton has its own fatal vulnerability, its breathtakingly beautiful shell. For centuries, humans have heavily harvested the triton for the curio trade, stripping these vital predators from the reefs to sell their shells as ornaments. By removing the natural predators of the crown of thorns, we have removed the final line of defense for the coral. We feed the starfish larvae with our terrestrial runoff, and we actively remove the only creatures capable of hunting the adults. The outbreaks are a perfect storm of ecological disruption. To maximize its feeding efficiency and minimize its exposure to the few predators that remain, the crown of thorns starfish has adopted a largely nocturnal lifestyle. As the sun sets, the reef transitions, the diurnal fish seek shelter, and the creatures of the dark emerge. Deep within the labyrinth of the coral rock, the starfish begins to move, its water vascular system, a complex internal network of fluid-filled canals, pumps seawater into its hundreds of tube feet, creating tiny hydraulic steps. It emerges from the shadows like a crawling constellation, its spines catching the faint light of the moon. Under the cover of darkness, it is free to feed without harassment. The venomous spines stand erect, creating a chemical buffer zone that allows it to everett its stomach and digest the coral in absolute peace. The coral polyps, locked into their limestone foundations, have absolutely no mechanism for escape. They can only wait as the slow, dissolving shroud descends over them. The narrative of the crown of thorns starfish is a story of profound ecological extremes. It is a creature of striking, almost alien beauty, armored in geometry and venom. In isolation, it is an evolutionary marvel, a highly specialized grazer that has conquered the challenges of the reef through chemical deterrence and external digestion. But when the delicate balance of the ocean is tipped, it reveals its true, terrifying potential. It becomes an amplifier of ruin. On a reef already weakened by the rising temperatures of global climate change, already battered by ocean acidification and violent storms, an outbreak of crown of thorns starfish is often the final, fatal blow. It pushes the ecosystem past the threshold of resilience, transforming the vibrant, pulsing metropolis of the ocean into a silent, white boneyard. The ocean teaches us that destruction is not always loud, and it is not always fast. Sometimes the most devastating forces in nature do not possess teeth or speed. Sometimes they are slow, radial, and relentlessly patient. The crown of thorns starfish stands as a terrifying testament to the power of a single organism to redefine an entire landscape. It proves that an animal armed with venom and an insatiable appetite can, under the right conditions, bring an entire world of limestone and color to its knees, leaving nothing behind but the pale skeletons of the consumed. The fish vanishes in the space between heartbeats. One moment, it is drifting lazily through the sun-dappled architecture of the coral reef, completely at ease, guided by the promise of microscopic prey caught in the gentle current. It drifts too close to what appears to be a brilliant, swaying underwater blossom. A single, translucent petal brushes against the fish's flank. There is no audible snap. There is no violent lunge, no sudden closing of jaws, no muscular thrashing to muddy the pristine water. Yet, the fish is instantly seized by a violent, full-body convulsion. Its fins lock rigidly. Its nervous system is hijacked. The surrounding petals, previously swaying with the idle rhythm of the tide, suddenly fold inward, wrapping the paralyzed victim in a soft, suffocating embrace, drawing it down into a hidden, central abyss. To the naked eye, the sea anemone is a masterpiece of deception. It wears a disguise of ornamental flora, a vibrant, harmless splash of color anchored to the unforgiving limestone to reef. But beneath this botanical illusion lies an organism that has perfected the art of microscopic warfare. The sea anemone does not need to chase its prey. It does not possess a brain to strategize a hunt, nor the muscles to sprint across the seafloor. Instead, it transforms the very water column around it into a suspended, invisible minefield, waiting with infinite patience for the ocean to deliver the victim directly into its arsenal. When that fatal touch occurs, the attack does not unfold at the level of jaws or claws. It unfolds at the scale of individual cells. Lining the surface of every single swaying tentacle are thousands of hyper-specialized cellular weapon systems known as cnidocytes. Within each of these cells lies a microscopic, pressurized capsule called nematocyst. Think of it as a biological landmine, a coiled, venom-laced harpoon packed under unimaginable osmotic pressure, just waiting for a trigger. These triggers are incredibly sensitive cilia, tiny hair-like structures protruding from the cell wall. They're designed to differentiate between the inert brush of a floating piece of seaweed and the distinct, biochemical signature of living tissue. When a fish brushes against a tentacle, it trips this microscopic wire. The response is a marvel of biomechanical horror, registering as one of the fastest-moving cellular events in the entire animal kingdom. In a fraction of a millisecond, the osmotic pressure inside the capsule is violently released. The microscopic harpoon blasts outward with the acceleration of a fired bullet. It pierces the scales, the skin, and the cellular walls of the prey. But the physical puncture is merely the delivery mechanism. As the barbed filament embeds itself deeply within the victim, it acts as a hypodermic needle, pumping a highly complex cocktail of neurotoxic peptides directly into the bloodstream. These neurotoxins are precision-engineered to induce absolute, instantaneous paralysis. They aggressively target and disrupt the ion channels in the prey's cell membranes, severing the communication lines between the nervous system and the muscles. The fish cannot swim away. It cannot even thrash. This rapid immobilization is crucial for the sea anemone, because its own body is entirely composed of soft, gelatinous tissue lacking any skeletal reinforcement. A violently struggling prey could easily tear its delicate tentacles to shreds. By deploying a venom that shuts down the motor functions of its victim before the struggle can even begin, the anemone preserves its own fragile anatomy. Once the prey is secured and silenced, the tentacles, acting in slow, decentralized coordination, guide the paralyzed meal toward the oral disc at the center of the organism. Here, the animal's radical simplicity is revealed. The sea anemone possesses only a single opening that serves as both mouth and exit. The prey is pushed down into the gastrovascular cavity, where a flood of powerful extracellular digestive enzymes begins to break down the tissue. The nutrients are absorbed directly into the anemone's body, and hours later, the indigestible remnants, the bones and scales, are quietly expelled back out to the same central opening. This combination of absolute physical softness and devastating chemical lethality represents a profound evolutionary paradox. The sea anemone cannot flee from danger. It cannot retreat into a heavily armored, calcified shell like a crab or an oyster. It is permanently tethered to the rock by a muscular, adhesive petal disc. To a casual observer, this rootedness appears to be a fatal vulnerability, but the anemone has inverted this supposed weakness. Instead of spending immense amounts of metabolic energy developing heavy armor or sustained locomotion, it has invested everything into its venomous perimeter. It has converted its immobility into a strategic stronghold. By anchoring itself to the jagged peaks and narrow channels of the reef, the anemone positions itself precisely where the hydrodynamic flow of the ocean is most advantageous. The tides and the currents act as a relentless, endless conveyor belt of food. Plankton, microscopic larvae, and unwary fish are swept along by the invisible rivers of the sea, funneling directly into the anemone's outstretched arms. It does not need to hunt, because it has positioned itself at the crossroads of the ocean's nutrient highways. But the sea anemone is far more than just a passive, venomous trap. It is a creature that exists on the absolute bleeding edge of biological classification, blurring the strict boundary between predator and producer. As you observe the vibrant greens, browns, and purples of sea anemones swaying in the sunlit shallows, you are not merely looking at animal pigmentation. You are looking at a sprawling microscopic farm. Embedded deep within the anemone's own living tissues are millions of single-celled photosynthetic algae known as zooxanthellae. This is one of the most successful and complex symbiotic alliances in the natural world. The anemone provides the algae with a safe, sunlit haven, high up on the reef structure, completely protected from grazing herbivores by its venomous tentacles. Furthermore, the anemone's own metabolic waste, carbon dioxide and nitrogen, provides the exact raw fertilizers the algae need to thrive. In return, the zooxanthellae act as a biological solar engine. Throughout the daylight hours, they tirelessly harvest the sunlight penetrating the clear tropical waters, converting it into energy-rich sugars and oxygen through the process of photosynthesis. A significant portion of this energetic yield is leaked directly back into the tissues of the host anemone. Up to 90% of the anemone's daily nutritional requirements can be satisfied by this internal solar power harvest. This profound partnership completely shatters the illusion of the sea anemone as a simple, solitary killer. By day, it is a magnificent, sprawling greenhouse, a largely autotrophic organism soaking in the radiation of the sun, fueled by its captive, microscopic gardens. But as the sun sets and the light fades, the photosynthesis ceases. The internal engine powers down and the anemone smoothly transitions. Its tentacles extend further into the cooling, darkened water. It reverts to its predatory nature, relying entirely on the venomous harpoons of its nematocysts to capture the nocturnal life that rises from the reef's hidden depths. It is an animal that shifts its fundamental identity in perfect synchronization with the turning of the earth. This reliance on symbiosis brings us to the most famous, and perhaps most extraordinary, biological loophole on the reef. The tentacles of the sea anemone are an absolute death sentence for almost any small fish that brushes against them. Yet, darting effortlessly through the deadly, stinging canopy, completely unharmed and entirely unbothered, is the clownfish. How does a vibrant, fragile fish survive living inside a literal minefield? The answer lies in a masterstroke of biochemical espionage. The firing of the anemone's deadly nematocysts is not a conscious decision. It is an automatic, chemical reflex triggered by contact with unfamiliar biological matter. The clownfish has learned to hack this reflex. Over a period of careful acclimation, the clownfish secretes a specialized, highly specific mucus that coats its entire body. This mucus lacks the specific proteins that the anemone's tentacles recognize as prey. In essence, the clownfish wears a chemical invisibility cloak. When it rubs against the tentacles, the anemone's sensory cells do not register the touch of a fish. They register the touch of another anemone tentacle. By tricking the host's chemical recognition system, the clownfish gains access to the ultimate, impenetrable sanctuary. Predators looking for an easy meal will not dare chase the clownfish into the heart of the venomous cluster. But the relationship is not entirely one-sided. As the clownfish fiercely defends its home from other intruders, it aggressively chases away butterflyfish and specialized turtles that might otherwise graze on the anemone's tentacles. Furthermore, the constant, frantic darting of the clownfish through the arms of the anemone significantly increases the flow of oxygenated water over the host's tissues, while the fish's own waste provides yet another source of vital nutrients for the symbiotic algae living inside. What appears to be a solitary lethal trap is, in reality, a bustling, highly cooperative microcity, a testament to the ocean's endless capacity for unlikely alliances. The sea anemone's mastery of survival extends even into the realm of its reproduction, where it once again defies the standard rules of animal biology. While they are capable of sexual reproduction, releasing vast cloud of eggs and sperm into the water column during synchronized lunar spawning events to be carried far and wide by the currents, they possess a far more incredible, almost immortal alternative. When an anemone finds a particularly perfect location on the reef, a spot with optimal current flow, perfect sunlight for its algae, and abundant prey, it does not need a mate to colonize the area. It simply clones itself. Through a process called longitudinal fission, a single sea anemone can literally tear itself in half, splitting straight down the middle of its mouth and base. Over the course of a few days, the two halves heal, regenerating the missing tissues until there are two perfect, genetically identical organisms where once there was one. Through the slow, relentless, asexual division, a single founding anemone can eventually cover massive swaths of rock, creating a sprawling, interconnected colony of clones. The rooted predator multiplies without ever taking a step, expanding its venomous perimeter through the sheer power of cellular division. Yet, despite its incredible venom, its microscopic armor, and its ability to clone itself into an army, the sea anemone is not invincible. The ocean is an arena of perpetual countermeasures. There are highly specialized predators, such as certain brilliantly colored nudibranch, sea slugs, that have evolved a chilling immunity to the anemone's stings. These slow-moving mollusks glide directly over the deadly tentacles, ignoring the microscopic harpoons, and actively graze on the anemone's flesh. But the nudibranch takes the insult a step further. As it digests the anemone, it carefully separates the unexploded, highly toxic nematocysts and stores them within specialized sacs on its own back. The predator literally steals the sea anemone's weapon system and repurposes it for its own defense. The armor of the rooted flower becomes the shield of the wandering slug. The anemone must also negotiate with the brutal physical realities of the coastal environment. In the shallow intertidal zones, where the receding tide can leave the reef completely exposed to the baking, desiccating heat of the sun, the anemone faces the very real threat of drying out and dying. To survive the low tide, it enacts a desperate, temporary retreat. It completely retracts its delicate tentacles, folding them inward and pulling its body down into a tight, incredibly dense gelatinous lump. By minimizing its surface area and sealing its moisture inside a tough, leathery exterior, it endures the scorching exposure, waiting with absolute patience for the cool, life-bringing waters of the returning tide to wash over it, allowing it to bloom once again. To gaze upon a sea anemone is to look at one of the most successful, ancient, and enduring designs in the history of life on Earth. It is an organism that rejects the frantic, high-speed chase of the traditional predator. It proves that dominance does not require a brain, a spine, or a single drop of blood. It operates on a completely different paradigm, one of biochemical governance. It defines its territory not by patrolling it, but by projecting a perimeter of absolute consequence. It is a creature of beautiful, terrifying contradictions. It is a carnivorous killer that sustains itself with sunlight. It is a solitary, rooted trap that plays host to a bustling community of immune fish. It is an animal as soft as jelly, armed with a weapon system that strikes faster than a bullet. As the ocean currents sweep endlessly over the reef, the sea anemone simply sways. It does not threaten. It does not warn. It waits, a vibrant, living snare, a testament to the terrifying truth that in the brutal architecture of the marine world, danger does not always swim toward you with bare teeth. Sometimes, it merely blooms in the sunlight, wearing the disguise of a delicate petal, waiting in absolute, devastating silence for the world to make the fatal mistake of reaching out to touch it. A pulse of unimaginable agony detonates beneath the surface of the water, striking with such absolute suddenness that the event is over before the ripples can even form. There is no looming shadow, no surge of displaced water, no warning glimpse of approaching teeth. A swimmer or a darting silverfish is simply moving through the sun-warmed shallows, completely at ease in the tropical calm. And then, the nervous system registers a catastrophic breach. It is a biological ambush executed so fast that the mind cannot even identify the attacker before the body begins to shut down. In less time than it takes for a human reflex arc to complete its basic circuit, for the sensation of touch to travel from the skin to the spinal cord and back again, thousands of microscopic, biological harpoons have already fired, embedded, and delivered their payload. This is not a bite. It is a weaponized collision. The box jellyfish does not hunt with muscle and bone. It converts the mere act of physical contact into a localized apocalypse, transforming the gentle coastal ocean into an invisible minefield, where a single touch is a catalyst for systemic collapse. To understand a box jellyfish is a look at predation stripped down to its absolute, terrifying chemical essence. It is a creature that defies every conventional rule of apex dominance. It has no jaws to crush, no claws to tear, and no skeletal architecture to support a high-speed chase. It is, by all outward appearances, an entity composed almost entirely of water, a fragile, gelatinous cube drifting silently through the tides. Its bell refracts the underwater light so perfectly, so subtly, that it effectively vanishes against the ambient glitter of the tropical sea. It does not cast a shadow. It possesses no dense pigmentation to betray its position. In the shimmering, highly textured environment of the coastal shallows, the box jellyfish becomes an optical ghost. Prey do not see a silhouette approaching. They inadvertently swim into an invisible, suspended interface. But beneath that delicate, transparent bell trails an arsenal of incomprehensible complexity. Along the length of its trailing tentacles, hundreds of thousands of highly specialized cells called cnidocytes lie completely dormant, yet infinitely primed. Inside each of these cells is a nematocyst, a microscopic capsule housing a tightly coiled, venom-coated filament. These capsules are pressurized to an astonishing degree, utilizing internal osmotic pressure that creates a microscopic environment trembling on the verge of rupture. Protruding from the surface of these cells are tiny, hair-like triggers. They are mechanically gated, finely tuned to ignore the inert brush of a drifting leaf or a grain of sand, but to react instantly to the distinct physical deformation caused by brushing against living, struggling tissue. When that specific mechanical threshold is crossed, the capsule violently discharges, The coiled filament blasts outward with an acceleration that ranks among the fastest recorded movements of any cellular structure on Earth. It is a biological ballistic missile, penetrating the outer layers of the victim's skin and injecting a devastating chemical payload directly into the bloodstream. The venom of the box jellyfish is a masterpiece of biochemical destruction. It is not a simple irritant meant to cause temporary discomfort. It is a hypercomplex cocktail composed of pore-forming toxins and cardiotoxic proteins. The moment these compounds enter the victim, they begin tearing microscopic holes in the membranes of red blood cells, causing them to leak potassium. Simultaneously, the venom aggressively targets the ion channels, the fundamental chemical gateways that regulate the flow of calcium and sodium in muscle and nerve cells. Pain is the very first signal of this invasion, a searing, electric burning that consumes the mind. But the pain is merely a loud symptom of a much deeper, more catastrophic physiological assault. By disrupting the precise electrical gradients required for cellular communication, the venom directly attacks neuromuscular coordination. In a small fish, this results in instantaneous, rigid paralysis. In larger animals or human victims suffering extensive entanglement, the venom races toward the heart. The toxins compromise the cardiac muscle's ability to maintain a synchronized contraction. They induce wild, chaotic arrhythmias that can rapidly escalate into total cardiovascular collapse. The box jellyfish does not overwhelm its prey through sheer physical mass. It completely dismantles the victim from the inside out through molecular precision. Yet, the most profound narrative reversal of the box jellyfish lies in the true purpose of this terrifying weapon. It is easy to view this animal as a mindless, floating terror, an indiscriminate killer lurking in the shallows to punish the unwary. But evolution does not build weapons of this magnitude for no reason. The box jellyfish is not engineered to hunt humans. Its venom is a hyper-specialized tool born out of absolute necessity, optimized for a very specific, incredibly difficult target: small, hyper-agile juvenile fish and shrimp. The coastal estuaries and mangrove swamps where the box jellyfish hunts are environments defined by frantic, high-speed life. Juvenile fish are aerobic athletes, capable of explosive bursts of speed and erratic, unpredictable changes in direction. If a gelatinous predator with no real musculature attempted to chase them, it would starve within days. The jellyfish cannot afford a prolonged struggle. If a trapped fish is allowed even 3 seconds to thrash and fight, its sharp fins and frantic movements would easily shred the delicate, water-filled tissues of the jellyfish's tentacles. Therefore, the jellyfish requires a weapon that acts as an absolute, instantaneous off-switch. The venom must be so overwhelmingly potent that it shuts down the prey's nervous system before it can even twitch. The terrifying lethality that can stop a human heart is simply a scaled-up consequence of a chemical tool designed to instantly freeze a silver-sided fish in the warm, unforgiving waters of the tropics. Efficiency in this world is the only currency that matters, and this pursuit of efficiency reveals an even more astonishing truth about the animal itself. The box jellyfish is not a passive drifter at the complete mercy of the tides. Unlike the true jellyfish or scyphozoans, the box jellyfish possesses a staggering degree of active, directional control. Its cube-shaped bell is capable of powerful, rhythmic contractions, propelling it forward at speeds that allow it to actively pursue schools of larval fish. It does not wait for food to blindly bump into it. It goes hunting. Even more shocking is its sensory apparatus. Embedded along the lower margins of its bell, organized into specialized sensory clusters called rhopalia, the box jellyfish possesses an incredible 24 eyes. And these are not merely crude, light-sensitive patches. Several of these eyes are structurally complex, possessing true corneas, lenses, and retinas. They can perceive distinct images, monitor the horizon, and detect obstacles in the water. A creature without a centralized brain, without a cerebral cortex to process complex thought, is actively looking at the world. It uses its visual data to steer itself away from dark, tangled obstacles where its delicate tentacles might snag, deliberately navigating toward the sunlit, open patches of water near mangrove roots where juvenile fish congregate. It hunts with a level of sensory integration and intentionality that shatters our understanding of what a simple organism is capable of doing. This intelligence is entirely decentralized. The box jellyfish coordinates its powerful swimming strokes, processes visual information from 24 eyes and dictates the firing of millions of stinging cells through a complex, distributed nerve net. It proves that sophisticated behavior, targeted hunting, and spatial awareness can emerge from cellular architecture without the need for a central command center. The animal does not deliberate or ponder its environment. It simply reacts with millions of years of evolutionary refinement perfectly encoded into its transparent flesh. However, the sophisticated, lethal hunter exists on a razor's edge of vulnerability, the very anatomy that makes an optical ghost. Its mesoglia-filled, watery body makes it incredibly fragile. It lacks any rigid internal structure to protect it from physical trauma. While it rules the calm, sheltered waters of the coastal nurseries, it is entirely at the mercy of the violent physics of the open ocean. A sudden storm surge, a heavy chop, or a strong, turbulent current can easily rip its delicate bell apart and tear its tentacles from its body. But even in destruction, the box jellyfish remains a threat. When the animal is shredded by a storm, the severed tentacles drift away on the current. These disembodied threads, floating invisibly in the surf, retain their microscopic capsules. The nematocysts remain fully pressurized and mechanically active for days. They will continue to fire upon contact, delivering full envenomation long after the animal itself has ceased to exist. The jellyfish's chemical footprint extends far beyond its physical lifespan. Despite its horrific toxicity, the box jellyfish is deeply embedded in the endless arms race of the marine food web. It is not invincible. Sea turtles, particularly the massive leatherbacks and the agile green turtles, actively hunt them. Over eons, these ancient reptiles have evolved thick, armored tissues in their mouths and throats that are largely impervious to the stinging cells. They have also developed specialized biochemical resistances in their bloodstreams that neutralize the cardiotoxins, allowing them to gorge on jellyfish like gelatinous, floating fruit. Certain specialized species of fish and nudibranch have also cracked the chemical code, finding ways to consume the tentacles without triggering the microscopic harpoons. The ultimate weapon is always met with an ultimate defense. The life cycle of the box jellyfish reveals yet another profound layer of survival strategy. The terrifying, transparent cube that haunts the shallows, the Medusa phase, is only the final chapter of its existence. Long before it pulses through the mangroves, it begins its life as something entirely different. The microscopic larvae settle onto the dark, hidden undersides of rocks or shells on the seafloor, transforming into a tiny sessile organism called a polyp. This polyp looks like a microscopic sea anemone, permanently anchored to the stone. In this form, it is practically immortal. It waits out the harsh seasons, enduring changes in water temperature and prey scarcity that would easily kill the fragile adult Medusa. It feeds quietly on passing plankton, and when environmental conditions align perfectly, when the water warms and the nutrient levels rise, the polyp undergoes a radical metamorphosis. It begins to reproduce asexually, budding off tiny, perfectly formed juvenile medusae that break free from a rock and pulse upward into the light. The creature that terrifies us as a drifting phantom is, in its genesis, a microscopic, patient anchor clinging to the darkness of the benthic world. This connection to the shifting environment brings us to the modern, often tragic intersection between the box jellyfish and humanity. The box jellyfish thrives in warm, nutrient-rich, calm coastal waters. These are the exact same environments that humans prize for recreation and coastal development. We build our resorts and our swimming beaches directly on top of their ancient hunting grounds. The encounters that result in devastating injuries or fatalities are not active aggression by the jellyfish. They are the inevitable mathematics of overlapping ecological preferences. Furthermore, human impact on the global ocean is acting as an unnatural catalyst for this predator. As massive amount of agricultural runoff pour into the seas, creating massive plankton blooms, the prey base for the jellyfish explodes. Simultaneously, as global sea temperatures rise, the precise thermal triggers that coax the dormant polyps to release their medusae are hitting more frequently over wider geographic ranges. The box jellyfish is essentially a bioindicator, a transparent mirror reflecting the changing chemistry of our oceans. When their numbers surge, it is a clear signal that the delicate balance of the coastal ecosystem is shifting, favoring the rapid, the gelatinous, and the highly toxic. The The box jellyfish forces us to confront a terrifying and beautiful reality about the nature of life in the sea. Dominance does not belong exclusively to the animals with the sharpest teeth, the thickest armor, or the most advanced brains. It belongs to the perfectly adapted, in the quiet, sun-drenched margins of the tropical world, where the mangrove roots dip into the salt water and the juvenile fish flash like silver coins. The box jellyfish drifts. It asks no quarter, and it gives none. It is a convergence of pure physics, advanced optics, and flawless biochemical engineering, all wrapped in a package that is 95% water. It proves that the most devastating forces in nature can operate in absolute silence, completely unseen, reminding us that in the ocean, true power is often microscopic, turning the very chemistry of life into a blade too fast to escape and too sharp to feel until the battle is already lost. The geometry of the water is shifting, but the prey does not yet realize it. A school of juvenile damselfish, vibrant and high-strung, hovers near a branching coral head. Their entire existence is tuned to the detection of sudden movement. Their nervous systems wired to trigger an explosive, scattered flight the moment a shadow darts or a jaw snaps. But the creature approaching them does not dart. It does not snap. It drifts with an impossible, hypnotic calm, descending to the water column like a sinking galleon under full sail. There is no surge of predatory speed. There is only a slow, deliberate unfurling of striped fins, an ornate fan spreading wide like a ceremonial banner catching a phantom breeze. The damselfish hesitate. Their ancient, hardwired survival algorithms are confused. Predators are supposed to be fast. Predators are supposed to be sleek, muted, and violent. This approaching entity is loud in its coloration, radiating rust, cream, and blood-red stripes, moving with the languid grace of an ornamental ghost. Because there is no sudden threat, the damselfish do not scatter. They merely back away, compressing themselves against a coral rock. And in that brief moment of hesitation, the trap silently closes. The massive, feather-like pectoral fins of the predator reach out, wrapping around the periphery of the school, cutting off the angles of escape one by one. The predator's mouth opens. The buccal cavity flares outward, and the slow-motion ballet violently terminates in a microscopic fraction of a second. A massive, localized vacuum is generated. The water implodes, dragging the nearest damselfish into the expanding maw. Beauty has just inhaled a life. The lionfish is a walking, swimming paradox. In the brutal, unforgiving arena of the coral reef, the fundamental law of survival for most creatures is concealment. You blend in or you die. You minimize your silhouette, you mute your colors, and you press yourself into the shadows. The lionfish shatters this law with spectacular arrogance. It is an evolutionary declaration, a creature that demands to be seen. Its elongated dorsal spines rise from its back in delicate, towering arcs, while its pectoral fins spread wide and translucent, painted in high-contrast bands. By conventional biological logic, this level of conspicuous display should make it an instant target for every passing shark, grouper, and barracuda. But this overwhelming visibility is not a mistake. It is an armor forge of warning. The lionfish relies on a biological strategy known as aposematism, the advertisement of lethality. It broadcasts its danger openly, converting striking visual contrast into a profound psychological deterrent. In an ecosystem where predators learn quickly and mistakes are usually fatal, high-contrast patterning functions as a universal stop sign. The lionfish does not hide its weapon. It frames it. It wants the reef to know exactly what it is. The weaponry backing up this visual arrogance is formidable. Rising from its dorsal ridge, its pelvic fins, and its anal fins are 18 needle-sharp spines. These are not merely structural supports for an elaborate display. They are biological syringes. Each spine is sheathed in a delicate integument and connected at its base to a specialized venom gland. When a larger predator, perhaps a young and inexperienced shark, attempts to close its jaws around the lionfish, the pressure tears the sheath. The spines penetrate the soft tissue of the attacker's mouth, and the venom is forcefully pumped into the wound. The payload is a complex, highly stable mixture of proteins and neuromuscular toxins that induce immediate, agonizing pain. It is not necessarily designed to kill a massive apex predator. It is designed to teach a lesson it will never forget. The venom triggers an intense inflammatory cascade, causing localized swelling, severe muscle weakness, and a systemic shock that leaves the attacker reeling. The predator spits the lionfish out, its mouth burning, its nervous system scrambling to process the trauma. For the attacker, the cause-benefit analysis of a meal shifts instantly and permanently. Pain becomes an embedded memory, and that memory shapes all future behavior. The next time that shark sees the rusted cream stripes, the towering spines, and the slow, deliberate glide, it will veer away. The lionfish leverages that brutal learning curve. By surviving an initial violent confrontation, it earns a localized reputation that protects it indefinitely. Its chemical warfare is not just punitive. It is a long-term investment in its own absolute safety. Yet, the true narrative reversal of the lionfish emerges when we peel back the layers of its defense to examine how it sustains itself. This creature is not simply a heavily armed, defensive icon floating aimlessly through the sea. It is one of the most extraordinarily efficient, calculated predators in the ocean. Unlike the ambush specialists that rely on total invisibility, or the pelagic hunters that rely on relentless speed, the lionfish hunts by manipulating the very perception of space. Its massive, elaborate pectoral fins are not decorative excess. They are highly specialized tools of containment. When a lionfish spots a target, a shrimp hiding in a crevice, or a small fish hovering near the sand, it does not charge. It begins a slow, mesmerizing approach. As it closes a distance, it rotates its body slightly, bringing its massive fins forward. It uses these fins as a moving wall, a physical and visual barrier that systematically reduces the prey's angular freedom. The lionfish gently herds its victim, pushing it against the flat surface of a coral boulder or driving it into a tight, branching corner of the reef. In the complex three-dimensional labyrinth of a coral ecosystem, small fish depend entirely on quick, erratic directional changes to evade capture. The lionfish expertly neutralizes this advantage. By extending its fins and blocking potential vectors of escape, it transforms the prey's agility into a fatal vulnerability. The prey's nervous system, finely tuned to react to the high-speed pursuit of a grouper or a snapper, is completely short-circuited by this gradual, almost peaceful encirclement. The damselfish doesn't panic because the trigger for panic, speed, is absent. The lionfish hunts not by outrunning its food, but by outmaneuvering it in slow motion. When the prey is perfectly cornered, pressed against the reef with nowhere left to dart, the lionfish executes its strike. The jaw mechanics are a marvel of fluid dynamics. It employs rapid suction feeding, simultaneously dropping its lower jaw and expanding the buccal cavity at lightning speed. This action generates a localized negative pressure wave, a vacuum so powerful that it physically pulls the surrounding water and the prey suspended within it straight down its throat in milliseconds. The elegance of the approach perfectly conceals the sheer, explosive violence of the capture. This meticulously slow hunting strategy is underpinned by a ruthless energy economy. In the warm, oxygen-variable waters of the tropical shallows, sustained, high-speed chases demand a massive metabolic output. Aerobic capacity is a strict limitation. The lionfish completely circumvents this biological tax. By hovering almost motionless, making only the most subtle micro-adjustments to its fins, it conserves vast amounts of caloric energy while it meticulously assesses its position. When it finally strikes, the energy expenditure is incredibly brief, entirely localized to the jaw muscles, and devastatingly decisive. Over the course of a lifetime, this strategy yields an incredibly favorable balance between the calories consumed and the metabolic effort spent. Venom drastically reduces the risk of being eaten, while controlled, hypnotic hunting perfectly conserves its resources. The lionfish embodies an absolute, flawless convergence of chemical defense and mechanical economy. Within its native range in the Indo-Pacific and the Red Sea, this flawless machine integrates perfectly into a massive, co-evolved web of checks and balances. The predators native to those waters have spent millions of years learning what the stripes mean, and they avoid the spines. The prey species have evolved alongside the lionfish, developing a healthy paranoia, learning to recognize a slow approach, and utilizing specific habitats to evade the herding behavior. The ecosystem is stable, held in check by mutual evolutionary pressures. But the story of the lionfish takes a dark, modern twist. What happens when you take a perfect, heavily armored, highly efficient predator and drop it into an ocean that has never seen before through the exotic aquarium trade. Human beings inadvertently provided the answer, and in doing so, unleashed an unprecedented ecological apocalypse. Sometime in the late 20th century, whether through accidental release during hurricanes or deliberate dumping by aquarium owners, the lionfish was introduced into the coastal waters of the Western Atlantic, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Caribbean Sea. When it arrived in this alien world, the lionfish's conspicuous display lost all of its learned meaning. The native predators of the Caribbean, the local sharks, the snappers, the groupers, looked at the bright stripes and the flowing fins and did not see a warning. They saw a bizarre, slow-moving target. But when they attempted to strike, they were met with a mouthful of venom they had no evolutionary context for. They quickly learned to avoid the new arrival entirely, leaving the lionfish with virtually zero natural predators in its new domain. Simultaneously, the native prey species of the Atlantic were hopelessly naive. When a Caribbean damselfish or a juvenile wrasse saw the lionfish slowly approaching with its fins spread wide, their survival instincts did not fire. They had no evolutionary programming to recognize the hypnotic herding technique as a lethal threat. They simply sat there, mesmerized by the floating geometry, right up until the moment they were inhaled. The result was an absolute massacre. The predator's efficiency, already formidable in its native range, became exponentially amplified by the ecological naivety of the Atlantic. Without predators to keep their numbers in check, and with an endless buffet of unsuspecting prey, lionfish populations exploded. They spread like a biological wildfire across thousands of miles of reef, reproducing at a staggering rate. A single female can release over 2 million eggs a year, her spawn riding the ocean currents to colonize new territories. This invasion triggered a catastrophic trophic cascade. The lionfish is a gluttonous feeder. Its stomach can expand up to 30 times its normal volume. They aggressively vacuumed up the juvenile populations of almost every reef fish they encountered. But the true tragedy lay in their consumption of herbivorous fish. The parrotfish, the surgeonfish, the tiny grazers that spend their lives scraping algae off the coral rock. Coral reefs exist in a delicate, endless war for space against fast-growing marine algae. The herbivores act as the reef's lawnmowers, keeping the algae trimmed down so the coral polyps can receive sunlight and oxygen. By decimating populations of these vital grazers, the lionfish indirectly doomed the coral. Without the fish to eat it, the algae grew unchecked, forming thick, suffocating mats over the limestone framework. The algae smothered the living coral polyps, suppressing new coral recruitment and fundamentally shifting the entire structural complexity of the reef over time. A single, elegant predator, armored in stripes and venom, became the catalyst for the suffocation of entire marine ecosystems. Its breathtaking beauty completely masked its systemic, world-ending consequence. Yet, even in the face of this invasion, the ocean is dynamic, and the absolute dominance of the lionfish is beginning to crack. Evolution is a slow process, but behavioral adaptation can happen within a single generation. In certain pockets of the Caribbean, large native groupers and specialized sharks are beginning to figure out the puzzle. They are learning to approach the lionfish from below, avoiding the venomous dorsal spines, or discovering ways to ambush them and swallow them whole before the spines can be fully deployed. Furthermore, a new, highly organized apex predator has entered the fray to artificially restore the balance. Human divers. Armed with specialized pole spears, protective, puncture-resistant gloves, thousands of divers now routinely hunt lionfish across the invaded territories, acting as a desperately needed artificial population control. The lionfish's conspicuousness, the very trait that served as an impenetrable shield in its native waters, has suddenly become its greatest liability. Its bold, vibrant warning display makes it highly visible not only to the predators trying to avoid it, but to the humans actively hunting it down. The advertisement cuts both ways. The venom of the lionfish also presents a fascinating paradox within its own biology. While it is potent enough to deter almost any physical threat, it is entirely useless for active predation. Unlike the venom of a sea snake, which is injected directly into a fish to paralyze it, the lionfish relies strictly on its mechanical suction to secure its food. The venom is an insurance policy, not a primary weapon. This brilliant division of labor allows the lionfish to hyper-specialize its hunting apparatus. its massive mouth and hurting fins, without sacrificing an ounce of its defense. Its spines enforce its personal space and guarantee its survival. Its mouth secures its sustenance. Chemistry and biomechanics operate in perfect, parallel harmony, each enhancing the other's absolute effectiveness. As twilight descends over the reef and the vibrant colors of the day shift into the muted, shadowy blues of night, the lionfish actually becomes more active. During this transition, many small reef fish reduce their vigilance, relying on the covered darkness and the complex shelter of the coral. But the lionfish's striped pattern, highly disruptive and glaring and bright, shallow conditions, becomes incredibly difficult to track in the shifting, low-light environment. Its slow, deliberate advance appears almost suspended in time, as though it is floating completely outside the frantic urgency of the reef. But beneath that slow, ghostly stillness lies a mind processing acute sensory data. Its vision is heavily tuned to detect stark contrast and the slightest twitch of movement in the dim light. It detects the subtle shift of prey settling into their nocturnal hiding spots. The reef pulses with the biological transitions of the evening, and the lionfish exploits those rhythms with cold, patient intent. The final, perhaps most tragic reversal in the story of the lionfish lies in perception of its ornamentation. To the human eye, the lionfish resembles an exotic, underwater masterpiece. It looks like an aquatic centerpiece, framed by flowing, delicate fins, a creature built strictly for admiration. It was that exact aesthetic appeal, that undeniable, breathtaking elegance, that facilitated its spread to the global ornamental fish trade. Our desire to capture and display its beauty inadvertently provided a pathway that reshaped the destiny of the Atlantic Ocean. The very trait that invites our awe also enabled its dispersal. Its elegance became its vector, hovering silently among the branching coral. Its venomous spines erect yet motionless, the lionfish commands its space without an ounce of haste. Its deep rust stripes pulse faintly in the refracted light, a warning written in stark contrast and flawless symmetry. Unsuspecting prey gather in the shadows, completely unaware that the geometry of the water is shifting around them, that a moving wall is slowly closing in. Massive predators pass at a respectful distance, their ancient instincts or painful memories warning them away from the bristling perimeter. The ocean continues its ceaseless, violent exchange of energy and competition. But within it, the lionfish occupies a quiet, untouchable niche forged by a perfect marriage of chemistry and design. It proves that supreme dominance in the wild does not belong to the fastest, nor does it belong to those with the most brutal strength. It belongs to the seamless fusion of terrifying display and calculated deterrence, of impossibly slow motion and instantaneous explosive force. In the grand, unforgiving theater of the coral ecosystem, the lionfish stands as a flawless testament to the fact that venom can be worn like royal regalia, that pure beauty can be weaponized as armor, and that elegance, when engineered by millions of years of evolution, is often the most deceptive and devastating weapon of all. A shadow, vast and hungry, slides over the sun-drenched topography of the reef. Above, a predator, perhaps a powerful triggerfish or a desperate, scavenging shark, circles with predatory intent. Its eyes lock onto a shape wedged tightly in the crevice of a coral boulder. From a distance, the target looks almost absurdly vulnerable. It is a dark, motionless sphere, completely devoid of the sleek musculature or the powerful tail fins that define survival in the open ocean. It cannot flee. It cannot swim. To the predator, driven by the relentless, burning mathematics of caloric deficit, this stationary object is an invitation. The predator banks sharply, descending to the water column, its jaws parting to deliver a crushing, decisive blow to the helpless sphere. The bite connects, but the anticipated yielding of soft flesh never happens. Instead, the predator's jaws slam into a catastrophic, unyielding geometry. The crunch that echoes through the water is not the sound of meal being secured. It is the sound of an attacker's profound regret. The predator's mouth is instantly filled with dozens of brittle, calcified needles. Some of these spines snap off under the immense pressure of the jaw, driving their jagged, broken ends deep into the sensitive, vascular tissues of the predator's gums and palate. Other spines simply flex, refusing to break, acting like steel rebar that props the jaws open, turning the predator's own bite force against it. The attacker violently thrashes, attempting to spit out the nightmare it just consumed. But the sea urchin is not finished. It does not merely absorb the impact. It actively retaliates. Hidden among the towering primary spines is a secondary, far more insidious defense system, microscopic. Stalked appendages known as pedicellary reach out. They are essentially thousands of tiny, three-jawed pincers dotting the surface of the urchin. As the predator struggles, these pincers clamp down viciously onto the intruding flesh. They do not just grip. They inject a highly concentrated, localized irritant directly into the torn tissue. The predator recoils in absolute agony, its mouth burning, its face studded with broken, toxic splinters. It retreats frantically into the blue, its lesson permanently etched into its nervous system. Below, the dark sphere remains exactly where it was. It did not flinch. It did not attempt to escape. It simply answered the violence of the ocean with the cold, immovable reality of its own architecture. The sea urchin is the ultimate embodiment of ancient, uncompromising defense. In an ocean where survival is typically dictated by speed, stealth, or the ability to vanish into background, the urchin chooses none of these. It survives by transforming itself into a biological fortress. It is a creature that has completely abandoned the concept of forward momentum in favor of absolute, 360-degree deterrence. To understand the urchin is to deconstruct a marvel of natural engineering. Beneath the bristling forest of spines lies the core of the animal, the test. This is not a shell in the way a snail carries a shell. The test is a rigid, spherical endoskeleton composed of thousands of tightly interlocking plates of calcium carbonate. These plates are not secreted as a dead outer layer. They are actually formed within the living tissue of the animal's skin. The urchin essentially builds its fortress from the inside out, precipitating mineral crystals directly from the seawater to construct a seamless, geometric dome. This radial symmetry, a body plan radiating outward from a central point, completely lacking a front, a back, a left, or a right, is one of the oldest and most successful architectural solutions in the history of life on Earth. A fish must turn to face its attacker. A crab must pivot its claws. The sea urchin never has to turn around because it faces everywhere at once. Every angle of approach is met with the exact same impenetrable wall of spears. The spines themselves are marvels of material science. In many species, they are long, hollow, and incredibly brittle, designed specifically to break off inside the flesh of an attacker, leaving a lingering, painful reminder that festers for weeks. In other species, the spines are thick, blunt, and heavily reinforced, acting like the heavy wooden palisades of a medieval castle, physically preventing the jaws of predator from ever reaching the fragile test below. But for some species of sea urchin, the mechanical defense is merely a delivery system for a chemical nightmare. In these venomous varieties, the tips of the spines or the jaws of the microscopic pedicellary are loaded with complex neurotoxins. When an unwary diver brushes against them or a fish attempts a desperate bite, the toxins induce a blinding, searing pain that can cause severe muscle cramps, profound swelling, and in extreme cases, respiratory distress. The urchin's defense network is entirely distributed. It has no central brain to coordinate an attack. If a shadow passes over one side of its body, the spines on that specific side will automatically pivot and point directly toward the threat, a localized reflex driven by a decentralized nerve ring. It is a reactive minefield that requires no conscious thought to operate. Yet, for all this impenetrable, terrifying armor, a profound narrative reversal lies hidden on the dark, unlit underside of the sphere. If you were to turn this creature over, you would not find the passive, stationary existence you might expect from an animal that looks like a pincushion. Dead center on the bottom of the test is an opening, and within that opening lies one of the most complex, brutal, and relentless feeding mechanisms in the natural world, Aristotle's lantern. Named by the ancient Greek philosopher who first marveled at its geometric perfection, this structure is a highly complex, five-sided jaw apparatus. It is composed of 40 distinct skeletal pieces, operated by a dense network of powerful, interlocking muscles. At the center of this apparatus are 5 massive, self-sharpening teeth made of intensely dense calcium carbonate. The sea urchin is not a stationary rock. It is a slow, relentless, devastating grazer. As it creeps across the reef, moving at a glacial pace on hundreds of tiny, hydraulically powered tube feet. Aristotle's lantern is constantly at work. The 5 teeth extend, open, press down against the solid limestone reef, and violently scrape together, gouging out algae, biofilm, and even the top layer of the rock itself. You can literally hear them eating underwater. It is a rhythmic, grinding crunch that echoes through the coral heads, the sound of an entire army of fortresses slowly scraping the earth down to the bone. Because these teeth are constantly being worn down against the abrasive rock, they never stop growing, pushing forward from specialized internal sacs like the constantly renewing incisors of a rodent. This hidden, relentless hunger transforms the sea urchin from a mere defensive anomaly into one of the most critical ecological engineers in the entire ocean. Coral reefs are locked in an endless, slow-motion war for territory. The enemy of the coral is marine algae, a fast-growing, suffocating blanket that constantly threatens to overgrow the slow-building polyps, blocking their sunlight and starving them of oxygen. The sea urchin is the ultimate frontline soldier in this war. By constantly patrolling the reef and using Aristotle's lantern to scrape the rock completely bare, the urchins act as the ocean's most vital lawnmowers. They consume the algae before it can choke the coral. Furthermore, by scraping the rocks clean, they create the pristine, barren surfaces that microscopic baby corals, the free-floating planulae, absolutely require to settle and begin growing a new colony. In a balanced ecosystem, the urchin is the unsung guardian of the reef's structural integrity. But the ocean is a place of fragile, terrifying balances, and the power of the sea urchin is so absolute that when the balance shifts, the guardian instantly becomes an apocalyptic destroyer. In ecosystems where the natural predators of the urchin, large wrasses, triggerfish, and specialized starfish, are systematically removed by human overfishing or sudden outbreaks of disease, the urchin population is suddenly freed from its evolutionary constraints. Without predators to thin their ranks, the urchins undergo a massive, unchecked population explosion. The slow, methodical grazers become a ravenous, unstoppable swarm. They march across the seafloor by the millions, a carpet of bristling spikes driven by an insatiable hunger. They consume every single scrap of algae. When the algae are gone, they turn their self-sharpening teeth on the kelp forest, chewing straight to the thick, vital holdfast that anchor the massive kelp fronds to the bottom. Like lumberjacks clear-cutting a redwood forest, the urchins sever the kelp at its base, causing entire underwater forests, some of the most biodiverse habitats on the planet, to detach and wash away in the tide. What is left behind is one of the most desolate landscapes on Earth, an urchin barren. It is an underwater desert of bare, white rock, completely stripped of vegetation and life, patrolled only by millions of starving, desperate sea urchins. In their starvation, they will even begin to eat the limestone itself or turn on each other. The creature that protects the reef can, in the blink of an eye, become the agent of its absolute annihilation. The urchin barren is a haunting visual testament to what happens when an animal's defensive strategy is so successful that it outlives the forces meant to control it. The energy economics of being a sea urchin are a constant, demanding calculus. Building and maintaining that rigid mineral test and constantly regenerating the spines are broken off by currents or predators demands a massive, continuous influx of metabolic energy. The calcium carbonate must be extracted from the seawater, synthesized and deposited. The urchin must eat constantly just to maintain the walls of its own castle. The heavy armor provides survival, but demands an incredibly high biological tax. It is a life dedicated entirely to the pursuit of fuel to maintain the fortress. Yet, even this terrifying, bristling fortress can become a sanctuary. The ocean is full of brilliant opportunists, and the deadly perimeter of the urchin does not go to waste. Certain species of tiny, highly specialized fish, shrimp, and crabs have evolved a profound tolerance for the urchin's spines. When danger approaches, a school of juvenile cardinalfish will dive headfirst into the terrifying canopy of the urchin's needles. They hover delicately in the negative space between the lethal spikes, perfectly safe. A predator looking to eat the tiny fish is met with a wall of impenetrable spears. In this beautiful, unintended symbiosis, the ultimate weapon of exclusion becomes a micro-habitat of absolute safety. The urchin, completely indifferent to its passengers, carries an entire community of refugees within its armor. The reproductive strategy of the urchin relies completely on the chaotic whims of the sea. They do not court. They do not build nests. When the temperature of the water shifts and the lunar cycle aligns, an entire population of sea urchins, spread across miles of reef, will simultaneously release billions of eggs and sperm directly into the water column. This mass broadcast spawning turns the water cloudy with genetic potential. The resulting microscopic larvae are completely unarmored, transparent, drifting aliens that join the vast, swirling clouds of the oceanic plankton. They drift for weeks or even months, carried hundreds of miles by the global currents, completely at the mercy of filter feeders. Only an infinitely small fraction will survive long enough to settle onto a distant rock, undergo a radical metamorphosis, and begin precipitating their first tiny plates of armor. This vast, pelagic drift ensures that the urchin, an animal that may only move a few feet in its entire adult life, is genetically linked to populations across the entire ocean basin. Its reach is global, even if its footsteps are microscopic. Of course, the evolutionary arms race is never truly won. An impenetrable fortress is occasionally breached. Over millions of years, the ocean has engineered highly specific workarounds to the urchin's absolute defense. Certain species of triggerfish have learned to use their powerful mouths to blow jets of water at the urchin, carefully blasting the sand out from beneath it until the sphere loses its grip and tumbles upside down, exposing the softer, less protected area around Aristotle's lantern. In the freezing kelp forests of the Pacific, the sea otter has evolved a different, profound solution: the use of tools. An otter will dive to the bottom, retrieve an urchin, and then grab a heavy, flat stone. Floating on its back at the surface, the otter will place the rock on its chest and ruthlessly smash the urchin against the stone, shattering the impenetrable calcite test to access the rich, calorie-dense reproductive organs inside. The armor that defeats the jaws of the shark is completely rendered useless by the ingenuity of a mammal wielding a hammer. As the tides pull across the rocky substrates, the sea urchin makes only the subtlest of adjustments. It tilts its spines to streamline against the flow of the current, reducing drag so it is not ripped from the stone. Its hundreds of translucent hydraulic tube feet extend and retract in a slow, perfectly coordinated wave, pulling the heavy, armored sphere millimeters at a time toward the next patch of algae. To look upon a sea urchin is to gaze at a living paradox. It is an organism of profound, almost archaic simplicity, yet its existence masks an incredible ecological consequence. It is an animal that refuses to run, refuses to hide, and refuses to compromise. It turns every single approach into a highly calculated, heavily weighted risk for the attacker. It is the reef's most vital preserver and its most terrifying potential destroyer. In the shifting mosaic of the marine world, where predators flash like lightning and prey vanish like smoke, the sea urchin simply endures. It sits upon the rock, a bristling geometric absolute. Beneath the lethal canopy of its spines, the 5 great teeth continue their endless, grinding work, converting the earth into energy, slowly shaping the future of the entire ecosystem. The sea urchin stands as a silent, heavily armored reminder that true dominance in the ocean does not always belong to the swift or the aggressive. Sometimes, survival belongs to the stubborn. It belongs to the creature that builds a fortress of geometry and pain and simply outlasts the hunger of the world. The ocean does not negotiate. It perfects. If you want to continue exploring the terrifying beauty and the absolute ruthlessness hidden beneath the waves, do not let the current pull you away. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for Earth's documentary so you never miss our next epic dive into the abyss. If these silent assassins and biochemical fortresses earned your respect today, leave a like on this video to help us conquer the algorithm, and tell us in the comments below which of these evolutionary masterpieces terrified you the most. Stay curious, respect the water, and we will see you in the deep.